Hi, welcome back to CineSum. Today we are going to summarize the movie Like Mike, released in the year 2002. Warning spoilers alert. A teenage boy named Calvin Cambridge lives in lounge orphanage with two of his stylish musketeers Murph and Reg. All three of them love to play basketball in the front yard of the orphanage. One morning while they are in the middle of the game, a group of bullies led by Ox stops them. He challenges Calvin to a match for his basketball jersey. While Calvin's musketeers suggest he ignore the bully, the ambitious boy wants to take on the challenge as his favorite basketball players would. The match starts and Ox fluently wins against him because of the significant height difference. As promised, he gets Calvin's jersey and rips it piecemeal just to irk him. The orphanage director Stan Biddleman frequently makes the kiddies vent delicacy to raise plutocrat for their own good. That night they go to the home game of the NBA platoon, Los Angeles Knights, and vent delicacies outside the arena. At the end of the game, Calvin spots the Knights trainer Wagger getting into a auto to leave. He approaches the man offering him some delicacies. When the trainer finds out that they are for a charity, he offers Calvin a 20-bone bill. Still, Calvin refuses to take it because he is not sure if the plutocrat they collect really goes to charity. Impressed by the kiddies' honesty, Wagger offers him 4 tickets to the coming basketball game. An overjoyed Calvin runs to Murph to tell him about the tickets. The coming day, a group of couples comes to the orphanage looking for a child to borrow. At first, Calvin is hopeful, but he soon realizes the parents only want youngish kiddies. Latterly, they're handed a box of bestowed clothes from the Providence store. Calvin gets his hands on a brace of shoes and tries them on. When he asks the nun about the shoes, she says that they belong to a notorious basketball player. On checking, Calvin finds Michael B. Jordan's initials on it. Ox gets jealous of the shoes and takes them down. He ties the laces together and throws them in the air. To Calvin's disappointment, the shoes hang on the power string. At night, a rainstorm strikes. When everyone differently is asleep, Calvin wakes up Murph in regulation to recoup the shoes from the string. They go outdoors. In the heavy downfall, Calvin ever manages to climb a tree near the string. He reaches for the shoes when suddenly lightning strikes right at them, making Calvin fall to the ground along with the shoes. Thankfully, he does not get seriously hurt. He notices that the shoes are charged with a weird force, but does not suppose much of it. The following day, the children go to the arena yet again to vend delicacies. Calvin, Murph, and Regulation get 4 tickets like the trainer had promised. Ox and his group of musketeers see them and get jealous. The bullies hovered to tell Biddleman that they bought the tickets with the charity plutocrat to keep him from creating trouble. Calvin offers Ox one of the tickets. The 4 of them also enjoy the game between the Knights and the Minnesota Timberwolves during halftime. The platoon's star player Tracy Reynolds and one of the trainers take part in a halftime show intended to invite further followership members to the arena. One person from the followership will get a chance to go one-on-one with Tracy. To the group's surprise, Calvin's ticket number gets named for the contest. When Ox finds out, he tries to catch the ticket from his hands. Calvin ever tricks him and runs to the front with his ticket. Tracy does not suppose much about the face-off. Since Calvin is just a sprat, he lets him score the first round, so the followership would be more involved. But following that, he has to stop the sprat or he'd be lowered. Tracy tries his stylish yet cannot stop Calvin from scoring a slam. Immersed, the crowd freezes in shock and erupts into cheers. While the star player is left embarrassed, the following day, Knights trainers go to meet Biddleman and ask him to let Calvin play for them for a day. At first, the director is reticent, but he agrees to let him go. When he's offered plutocrat, Calvin's musketeers are overjoyed for him. Ox, on the other hand, is furious, since Calvin could not indeed win against Ox before he got the shoes the kiddies derived that the shoes are magical. They decide to keep it a secret, so no one would try to take them down, but Ox hears them talk. The following day, Calvin enters the Knights' changing room. Much to Tracy's annoyance, the teammates ask Tracy to brace himself because the sprat is coming for his throne. Calvin is given a Knights jersey and a brace of new shoes that he has to wear. He asks the trainer if he can wear his old shoes, but the trainer does not watch about the vesture. Calvin's presence is only a hype trick, so it wouldn't count how he plays after the last match. Calvin's fashionably has grown exponentially, which has in turn increased the fellowship in the arena. He does not get to play for the first half of the game, as their platoon is about to lose. He asks the trainer to give him a chance. Although skeptical, he allows Calvin to play. Since he's not wearing his lucky shoes, Calvin is too nervous to everyone's annoyance. He calls a downtime and runs to the locker room to change into his old shoes. On returning, he's much further confident. The Sprat efficiently helps his platoon to catch up with the opponent's points and makes them win. Following the match, he signs a contract to play with the platoon for the rest of the event. He's in the orphanage packing up to leave for the event. When Biddleman confronts him, the man wants to continue being his guardian because of the fiscal benefits. Thus, he tells Calvin to be careful of the people who will want to borrow him now because they only watch about his plutocrat. On the flight, the trainer assigns Tracy and Calvin to the same room. Calvin loves the fact that he gets to partake a room with his hero, but Tracy is not as agitated about it at night. They've a curfew that Tracy plans to break. He gets ready for a date and leaves after tutoring Calvin how to use room service. The Sprat gets to eat wherever he wants and takes full advantage of it. When Calvin returns with his date, the room is trashed with half-eaten food. He'd anticipated to spend the night together with his date, but rather they end up taking care of Calvin, who's sick. The boys go to sleep late at night, but indeed also Tracy can hardly fall asleep because of Calvin snoring. The following day they've an important match, but Tracy is tired. Calvin intentionally reveals to the trainer that they stayed up late at night. The trainer warns to suspend Tracy if he misses curfew one further time. Starting that day, Calvin plays several games with the Knights and helps them win all of them. The opponents don't know what to anticipate when they play with the Sprat and are surprised by his chops. He gets to go to several press conferences and makes a lot of plutocrat. With the plutocrat, he buys a bunch of gifts for everyone in the orphanage. He also wins the Boss Slam Immerse competition and becomes the most talented rising basketball star. One night, Calvin is talking to Murph about his new life and all the fun he has had playing in the NBA. A jealous ox hears them and attacks Calvin, trying to take his shoes down. The fight stops when Biddleman intervenes and scolds Ox for hitting his musketeers. He does not want Calvin to get hurt now that he makes so important plutocrat. Off him the coming time, the platoon is at a hostel. Tracy goes to the drugstore to buy sleeping capsules and mislike drugs to ensure he gets a good night's sleep before the coming day's match. Calvin joins him for the lift. Much to Tracy's annoyance, on their way the kid inquires about Tracy's parents. He has set up out that Tracy has a father with whom he does not talk. The idea is foreign to Calvin because he'd do anything to have good parents. Tracy claims that he does not want to talk about his family and keeps driving. He does not pay attention when the cashier gives him the capsules and takes a sleeping lozenge rather of a mislike one. Because of this, the man falls asleep before he can start the auto and get back to the hostel. Calvin knows that if he misses the curfew, Tracy will be suspended. Hence, he drives the auto back to the hostel, hitting several stuff on his way. The coming day, Calvin is suspended for going on a ride. Tracy feels bad that the Sprat got penalized because of his mistake. Latterly at night, they are on the flight back when Tracy thanks Calvin for taking the heat to save him. Tracy has started to like the Sprat after spending some time with him. When Calvin returns to the orphanage, several people come in wanting to borrow him. Murph gets jealous because he wants the grown-ups to want him as well. Since Biddleman does not want Calvin to get espoused, he chooses only the worst parents and arranges a meeting with them. Calvin does not like any grown-ups he meets and decides to keep staying at the orphanage. Rather, that weekend he goes to meet Tracy in his house unannounced. The Sprat is bedazzled by the size of the player's manse. When asked why he's there, Calvin tells Tracy everything about Murph being upset him not getting good parents and a figure test he has hereafter to break the Sprat's problems. Tracy asks him to invite Murph over. While they stay, he teaches him figure in a delightful way, so he wouldn't get wearied. In the middle of it, they start playfully throwing makeup at each other. Murph joins them a while laterally and forgets about his argument with Calvin. The following day, Calvin and his musketeers are together talking about how delicate it's to find good parents. When Calvin tells him about Tracy and his father's relationship, they suggest he help them attune. The coming day, Calvin meets with Tracy's father and brings him to Tracy's house. The player is furious at Calvin for overrunning his sequestration. They get into a massive argument about the matter. The coming day, the Knights have a match against their biggest opponents, the Toronto Raptors, but Calvin and Tracy have still not resolved their differences. Because of this, they lose the match. The trainer scolds the platoon for demeaning their performances in such a pivotal game. Now they only have one last match, which will decide if they will enter the playoffs or not. The coming day, a couple comes to the orphanage asking to borrow Calvin. He's skeptical after several failed meetings, but Biddleman urges him to give them a chance. He makes Calvin wear new shoes, telling him if he looks presentable, they will want to borrow him. Indeed more. Before leaving, Calvin hands his lucky shoes to Murph, asking him to guard them with his life to test the shoes. Murph wears them and tries to play like Calvin, but he fails. He concludes that they don't fit him, and continues talking to a picture of his mama. Ox and his musketeers hang him to tell them about the shoes. When he refuses, they take him to Biddleman, who burns the only picture of his mama that Murph has with no way out. Murph tells them where the shoes are. Following that, Biddleman meets his associates and bets 100,000 bones against the Knights in the coming game, since he has hidden the lucky shoes. He's sure that Calvin will be horrible in the game. Calvin goes on a regale with his implicit parents, but he does not feel to fit in. In the meantime, Tracy meets his father and reconciles with him. He misses Calvin terribly and talks to him before their coming match. He wants to borrow the Sprat, but choruses from telling him that. After meeting the couple who he went to see History 20 twinkles before the game, Murph calls Calvin and tells him about the shoes. Calvin rushes back to the orphanage to recoup them. The kiddies help him to tie up Biddleman and ask him where the shoes are. Ox goes against the group and tries to help him, but he changes his mind after Biddleman cuts him. Like usual, he brings out the shoes from the safe and gives them back to Calvin. Everyone also gets on their scooters and drives back to the arena. Biddleman ever frees himself and calls his associate to stop Calvin from arriving at the game. The men stop him, but the kiddies manage to stall them and let Calvin into the arena. As a last resort, Biddleman stands in front of Calvin, abstain him from going further, but the Sprat hits him with his scooter and eventually gets to the game. By his appearance, his platoon is before by a large periphery. When he starts playing, they soon catch up with the opponent's score. Still, he gets dived in the middle of the game, and his shoes are destroyed. A nervous Calvin believes his magic lies in the shoes, so he'd no way be suitable to score without them. Tracy motivates the boy, telling him that the shoes only gave him confidence. The real gift lies within himself. Ultimately, Calvin continues the game and helps his platoon palm, wanting to spend the rest of his non-age like a normal Sprat. Calvin tells his trainer that he does not wish to renew the contract. He returns to the orphanage, which is now entirely different because of Biddleman's departure. Tracy tells Calvin about his plans to borrow a child and asks him if he wants to be his son. Calvin agrees on the condition that Murph will also come with him. Their friend Regulation is also espoused by a different family. In the end, both Calvin and Murph playfully fight with Tracy in their new room. Subscribe to watch more cine summaries like this. Turn on notifications and press the like button to support us.